It's the 9th of March 2015, and the PP record is Wobblewolf's 600 on Sakura Kagetsu. And Cookiezi is still banned. Blue Zenith would be submitted, and 5 months later, in August of that year, it was ranked. And it immediately became clear that the map was pretty difficult, with the top diff going un-FC'd for weeks, even after being attempted by most of the best flowing players at the time. Which did make a lot of sense, because although the map starts out fairly tame with semi-spaced 200 BPM streams, which, while difficult, would certainly not have warranted the map's reputation. As the map progresses, it gets more and more spaced, and by the end, there's a long section of spaced streams which takes a huge amount of flowing and is then followed by a jump section, which, although not being technically harder than the streams, with nerves, and right after coming off of one of the map's hardest streams, they can feel nigh on impossible. This made it so that for the first month after the map was ranked, no one FC'd it. That is, until Rafis finally got the first Nomon FC for 529 PP. This was a pretty impressive score, and it was even worth a decent amount. But with the players active at the time, this seemed like the best score anyone could get on the map. And it almost certainly was. Until one fateful day. On November 25th, 2015, when Cookiezi was unbanned. He'd always been nuts at streams, and quickly after his unban, he made it clear that he'd gotten even better, with scores like his number 1 in Everything Will Freeze, and a good run on Freedom Dive coming before he decided to play the map on the day of his unban. After which, he would immediately put on Hard Rock, and he would later say that the map was too easy without it. Which is a pretty big statement, seeing as the map only had 2 Nomon FCs, and both of those weren't that far off from the PP record. The map also got exponentially harder with Hard Rock, making basically the entire map as space as the original ending, and making the ending so hard that it was nearly unpassable. And this, combined with even Cookiezi, someone who had nearly FC'd most of the game's hardest stream maps, not passing it on the day of his unban, made it clear that the map was exceptionally difficult. The thing was that on that day he only played the map a few times, but over time it had become clear that he'd taken at least somewhat of a liking to it, since over the next months he would play the map on most of his streams, and he would eventually end up Nomon FC'ing it just because. This obviously wasn't what he wanted though, and so after this he would only end up playing the map more with Hard Rock, and in a very short period of time, he improved on it a lot, but he still couldn't get the pass. That is, until December 29th of 2015, when he tried the map over 50 times in one day, and passed it 3 times, with his best run being a Hard Rock 3 miss, all of which were at the end of one stream, which in the grand scheme of things was pretty easy in comparison to what he did before and after. And if he'd gotten it, the play would have been 700 PP, and likely over 100 PP more than the current PP record. But in this case, it was clear that nerves had gotten the best of him, since he shook so much near the end that he almost missed the entire last stream. The thing was that although this run took him over an hour and 50 attempts, this made it clear that the FC was certainly possible, and it could even be the first 700. And only 4 days later, he would do the impossible, and get a completely insane run on the map. He had set the first 700 ever, and because of a bounty, he'd also earned $1,000. This basically broke the community. Only a month after his unban, Cookiezi had smashed the previous PP record and set an unforgettable score, with a catch. Since he'd missed not on the space stream near the end, or even this, but with accuracy that would currently be worth over 800 PP, he'd shook off one of the jumps because of nerves. This all resulted in the number 727, which, because of the legitimate aneurysm people had when the score was set, and the nice looking number it made, would make it turn into a meme pretty shortly after. It was a massive play, and over time it would grow into almost a legend. We'll get back to this. But for now, Cookiezi would occasionally try the map, trying to fix the score, but he would eventually move on, leaving the map to be played mostly by other players. The thing was that this score was basically impossible for anyone else to get, and so most of the other impressive scores on the map would come in the form of Nomon FCs, with the map being FC'd many times over the next year and a half, with a few impressive ones being Captain X's FC with an astonishing 99.8% accuracy, and an easy FC from GN. But all of these couldn't live up to the insanity of the original, and with the exception of Angel Sim, who choked a 2,200 combo run, the Hard Rock leaderboards were so barren it was almost comical. There was a massive hole there that could really only be filled by one person, Cookiezi himself. And crazily enough, he would end up being summoned to the map once again, after somebody sniped his Hard Rock score with Hidden. And in one of the biggest power moves the game has ever seen, he decided he was going to Hidden Hard Rock FC it, just to take back the #1 spot on the map, despite the fact that he could almost certainly have sniped it with Hard Rock only. But it seemed that since he'd already set 800 on Freedom Dive, this was really the only way he saw fit to make a groundbreaking play on the map. Because if he were to get it, that's certainly what it would be. And he almost did it, when he got this. $727 PP. Again. This time with Hidden Hard Rock. You can't make this up. He also got the #1 spot back, which seems great until you realize that was the main reason for him playing the map. This meant that he didn't have much desire to fix the score, or escape, from 727. And seeing as no one else was able to get anywhere near this score, it left the map sort of in limbo. Until it started happening. The gradual but ever-moving increase of player skill, catching up to the map. Starting with Idkey, who would get a 2-miss on the map with Hard Rock for 600 PP. And then, within a shockingly short period of time, Yang would get this. This score was absolutely absurd, and it was the map's first Hard Rock FC. This did also put in perspective just how insane Cookiezi's act was though, because despite being an FC, it was worth over 30 less PP. It had still at least given the map the Hard Rock FC that had been so overdue. Now, there was really only one thing left, a Hidden Hard Rock FC. The problem was that the majority of the best Flow-Aim players played Hard Rock only, mainly because before the Hidden rebounds, the absurd amount of reading difficulty that was added with Hidden was just not worth it. And so, until things changed, players would really only try Hard Rock on the map, which actually led to the map being pretty competitive on that side, with Idkey finally FCing the map with Hard Rock and Poon 1 missing it. But this period of relative activity on the Hard Rock side and almost none on the Hidden Hard Rock side would finally end with the implementation of the Hidden rebounds. This would pretty much make Hidden Hard Rock on stream maps like Blue Zenith viable again. As an example, it murdered 727 when it buffed the play to be worth nearly 800 PP. This would seem to finally serve as motivation for the few players who even had a chance. Most notably, Karthy, who had already made a name for himself playing Hidden Hard Rock on stream maps, with plays like Honesty Hidden Hard Rock, which had been the PP record at the time. But Blue Zenith was a bit different, mainly because of the way the streams were laid out, which, while not seeming all too significant with Hard Rock because you can see the circles, made Hidden very difficult, because of the reading required to very deliberately hit notes that you'd not been able to see for a good while. But Karthy would take on this challenge, spending hundreds of attempts on the map, just to get the legendary play. And one day, he was on a run that really looked like it was it.
Oh my fucking god.
The jumps had struck again, killing another insane run. But although the jumps were where they came through, the nerves at the end of the map were almost the real thing that kept killing runs, which sort of meant one thing had to be done. Someone had to get comfortable enough with reading and aiming the map that the ending was completely comfortable. And with Karthy seemed like the best candidate, the hope was that he would continue to play the map, which was why this 2-miss was so bad, since it was almost certainly incredibly demotivating to know that you had the aim and reading prowess to do the most difficult part of the map with great accuracy, only to miss on the most janky part right after. Which led to hidden hard rock on the map being almost completely deserted, which is almost the complete opposite of hard rock on the map at the time, since it seemed players had finally caught up. Idkey would FC the map for a second time with hard rock for 795 PP. Varvalian, Spare, and Dustus would also all FC it for the first time with exceptionally good accuracy. But even while the map was FC'd many times over with hard rock, hidden hard rock remained elusive. There were a couple of people who got very close though, mainly Idkey, who once again missed on the jumps. The thing that gets me about this entire thing is that Idkey was able to FC with hard rock, and so he could clearly hit the jumps. And the thing is that the streams get so much more difficult with hidden, while the jumps barely even change. So everyone missing on them was because of two things. Obviously, the nerves were even worse than the jumps when you were setting a score as legendary as Blue Zenith hidden hard rock. But with Idkey barely shaking at the end, it seemed like all the three people who had FC'd the entire map were just unlucky at the end. And in every case, them missing at the end had killed their motivation to play the map. Well, at least for a while. Since, over a year after his hidden hard rock choke on the map, Karthy would come back around. Throughout this time, a few things had happened to him. Mainly, he'd become a complete beast at jumps, with even his very impressive hidden hard rock top plays being impressed with aim farm maps. This seemed to finally give him the confidence he needed to take on the map once again. And this time, it would go very, very differently.
We were different on goals though, like PS3 and PS4 were completely different buttons. Completely different. It was a memory, it was a share memory.
Nice cock.
Let's fucking go!
He'd finally FC'd the map, and basically broke the curse that seemed to have started all the way back in 2016, when it was first choked by Cookiezi. And he did it all with legendary accuracy, not only ending the curse, but destroying it. Blue Zenith is a legendary map. It's home to the first 700, and what is almost certainly the funniest number ever. What Blue Zenith was, is the grounds for the greatest comeback the game has ever seen. A tragic curse, and a player who broke it in legendary fashion. And seeing the map go from unFCable with hard rock to having so many with the mod, shows just how much better players have gotten. And I think that's pretty unreal.